In this demo, I will show you how to set up Heapster with InfluxDB and Grafana. You first need Heapster, which you can download from github.com, Kubernetes Heapster. So here you clone or download. You can just download a zip file, for instance. Or you can use git clone to clone this repository. I will then download this master zip of Heapster, unzip it. Then you can find the files that we need to deploy in deploy kubeconfig influxdb. But those files are meant for the Kubernetes add-on, and I'm not going to use the add-on system. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use kubecontrol and add those as a pod. So I will need to edit some of these services. So we'll first start with the Grafana service. And here it says, if you are not using this as an add-on, you should comment out this line. So that's what I'm going to do. And this needs to be of type node port, because we are not going to use a load balancer on our Minikube. If you are using AWS and you want to use a load balancer, you could change this in load balancer. I'm going to edit the Heapster service.yaml. Again, this line needs to be commented. And if I want to access this service externally, I could add a node port. But for now, I don't need this. And then we have InfluxDB service. And then I comment this line again. This one again, InfluxDB has a UI that you can use. Then you just have to uncomment node port and uncomment these ports, and then you can use the InfluxDB API and you can then do queries directly on this database. I'm only going to show you the graphs using the dashboard and Grafana. I don't need those. Kubecontrol, create -f, and I can do -f also on a directory. Doesn't need to be a file. And this is then going to add all those files. But I see that I'm trying to connect to my kops cluster, which is offline, and I want to use Minikube. So I'm just going to exit here. And on my MacBook itself, I have Minikube running. So I'm going to use kubecontrol create -f right here, because I use this Ubuntu Xenial to connect to my kops cluster, and I have my local MacBook Pro to connect to Minikube. So these now are all running, and I need at least one pod to show you the example. So I'm just going to create from the Kubernetes course, a deployment, the hello world.yaml. Kubecontrol create. And then when this monitoring Grafana service is up, I can do Minikube service monitoring Grafana --url, and those are launched in a different namespace. So I have to specify the namespace kube system. This is going to give me the URL, and then I should be able to connect. This is Grafana. You might need to log in here, so make sure that if you make this public, that you immediately change the password, or that you password protect this UI. Standard user and password is admin. I'm going to log in with admin, and then I can see the cluster. This can take some time before it is running. So I just refreshed, because you have to wait a couple of minutes after you launch your cluster. And now we have one data point. It becomes more interesting when we go, instead of cluster, to pods. And then here we can then see our pods. So we have the namespace kube system and the namespace default. And in the namespace default, I have, for instance, my hello world deployment that I just started. And then here you will be able to see how much CPU, how much memory, how much network usage, how much file system usage the pods are using. And then also more interesting now is that if you go to the dashboard, you will also be able to see the graphs. So if I type Minikube dashboard and then the URL, and I go to the kube dashboard, I will also now see memory usage, CPU usage of all those pods, which is very good to follow up. And you also need this monitoring to do auto-scaling, which I will explain you in the next lecture.